Yo, what's good, y'all, man? We got The Last of Us episode 2 breakdown, ending and explain Easter eggs, game comparison, and more. You feel me, man? They just dropped it yesterday, last Sunday. Well, this Sunday, I mean, last Sunday, last Sunday. But yeah, type shit. But yeah, they just dropped the show. I give it a 10 out of 10. Same as the last one. Good as episode, you feel me? It was sad that she had to die, but you know what I'm saying? She got bitten, you know what I mean? They can't, you feel me? They can't, you know what I mean? Like, they can't, you feel me? Unless they gonna die. So she got, you know what I mean? Type shit. But, yeah, leave a like to my channel, hit the bell, and, yeah, let's get it.
On this episode of The Last of Us, we have everything from steamy French kiss action to chicken
Yeah, it was. They was kissing, but it was like...
sandwiches.
Popeye's chicken sandwich. Popeye's chicken sandwich.
Fine, I'll just throw a f***ing sandwich at them.
Episode 2.
Nah, this shit crazy. Yeah, it's called Effect. I ain't know what it's called. I just saw it.
Entitled Infected, takes us deeper into the contaminated zone as Joel...
And I like how they showed the, like, behind the scenes, like a little background on how it started. I think it started in China or some shit like that.
And Tess tackle the game's biggest obstacle, doors blocked by debris. In this video, we take a deep dive into the episode, its connection to the game, Easter eggs, and more. So
yeah, I saw that.
Make sure to like and subscribe. I may not cover every show you watch, but when I do,
it's great.
We begin in Jakarta, Indonesia, 2 days before the events that take place in Austin,
Texas. Okay, it's called Indonesia.
This is from episode 1. If you remember the news on the radio when Joel and Sarah are having breakfast, they reported a series of disruptions in Jakarta affecting this city. No doubt a cause of the events we're about to witness. Disruptions in Jakarta affecting this city. No doubt a cause of the events we're about to witness. A military officer by the name of Agus Hidayat has
told her oh, a man got, he got basically, bitten.
Professor of Mycology, Ibu Ratna. Mycology is a branch of biology that focuses on the study of fungi. As she's brought deeper into the Ministry of Health, she's asked to examine a specimen of fungi which she identifies as Ophiocordyceps, a type of fungus. What's interesting about this is that one of its species, called Ophiocordyceps unilateralis, is known to attach itself to ants, work its way into their brains, and alter the ant's behavior, eventually killing it and releasing spores from its head.
Man, it look nasty.
If you're interested in learning more about head-exploding spores, check out Planet Earth's Jungle episode, which inspired creative director Neil Druckmann to create The Last of Us. What concerns the professor, however, was how the sample was prepared using chlorazol. Chlorazol is a histological stain used to visualize certain structures in tissue samples and commonly used to prepare samples from humans to be examined under microscopes. But fungi can't survive in humans. How is it in this human sample? Remember back in episode 1, Dr. Newman said that fungi can't survive in hosts with temperatures higher than 94 degrees, but he theorized that if the world's temperature were to rise, fungi would have to evolve. Presence of such a fungus in a human sample suggests that this evolution has finally taken place. So the professor ventures into the lab to analyze this body for herself. Of note is the bite mark on her leg, which looks similar to Ellie's bite we saw at the end of episode 1. We briefly see the professor cut it open, and I'm no doctor, but whatever's in there does not look normal.
Yeah, that shit look crazy. No cap. That shit look
crazy. No blood pours out, and the fungus has taken over. We all also see a bullet to the head. As the military officer later states, the woman was shot roughly 30 hours ago at a flour and grain factory west of the city when she attacked and bit 3 of her co-workers, whom were put into quarantine and later executed when they turned infected. Remember that Indonesia at the time was ruled by a military dictator, so these kinds of things aren't too far-fetched. Episode 1 hinted that the infection may have spread with tainted flour. Joel and Sarah didn't have flour to make pancakes for breakfast. Sarah didn't eat Mrs. Adler's cookies because they were raisin, and Joel forgot to bring home a cake for his birthday. So they may have dodged a bullet by not eating these cordyceps
Oh yeah, the flour.
infected goodies.
Oh yeah, that's why. Okay, I
All
see.
made from flour. The game,
Okay, I see. We're going. Okay.
on the other hand, is a bit more vague when it comes to the origin of this fungus, providing us only with a Texas Herald newspaper article that hints that the fungus came through tainted crops from South America and Mexico. Remember in episode 1 that a bite to the leg takes about 24 hours to incubate, so this woman got bit roughly a day before heading to work. So far, this is the first verifiable case of the fungus.
True that. Hold on, y'all. Hold on. Okay.
Fungus in humans. However, we can't call her patient 0 because she too was bit by a human a day prior to turning. It'll be interesting to see if the show delves deeper into its origins or if they'll prefer to keep it a mystery. Inside the victim's mouth are these fungal-like
Yeah, what I'm saying, like, it was moving too. Why she put that thing out? It was moving. I'm like, oh man, that shit alive.
tendrils similar to those found on Mrs. Adler. They even move on their own after being taken out. In a room colored sickly yellow, no doubt a conscious choice by the creative team, the professor hears of the events which brought the infected woman to the lab. In fact, 14 workers from the factory are now missing. You'll notice the professor's hands shake while holding her tea, knowing that this evolved fungus has spread among the human population and the chances of it being contained are next to 0. As a professor of mycology, she would have likely been familiar with the work of Dr. Newman. That's why when the military officials ask for her help to create medicine or a vaccine, she says there are none. The only way to stop the spread is to bomb the city with everyone in it. She asks to be driven home to spend the last remaining days of her life with her family. Flash forward 20 years, we find Ellie in the fetal position bathed in light. The fetal position, an image of life. You may have even noticed the butterfly fluttering across the frame, symbolizing rebirth and metamorphosis. Butterflies were hidden all throughout episode 1. This light shining on her was also how we first saw her last episode. She's become this visual representation of the Firefly motto, when you're lost in the darkness, look for the light. Ellie is that light, and humanity needs her. The last we saw of Tess, Joel, and Ellie, they were making their way through the rain into the contaminated zone. Tess and Joel found out Ellie was bitten 3 weeks ago, yet shows no signs of turning. As we'll find out later in the episode, a certain change from the game will really nail home the fact that Ellie is immune. Understandably, Tess and Joel watch over her with trepidation. There's never been anyone immune to the infection, and Joel just wants to take her back to the quarantine zone and
just basically kill her. I mean, pretty much what they gonna do is kill her.
Find another way to get their battery. Tess, on the other hand, is a bit more curious and wants to know how exactly Ellie came to be in the hands of the Fireflies, infected no less.
Yeah, she
if
wanna
you
know.
played The Last of Us DLC Left Behind, you'll know exactly what happened. Ellie was with her friend Riley hanging out in the abandoned mall when she got bit. Now, it's interesting to note here that Ellie lies to Tess and says she was at this mall by herself. Riley is never mentioned. But we do know Riley exists in the show universe because of this line from episode 1.
Was Riley a terrorist?
Riley is undoubtedly one of the reasons Ellie would want to find a cure. She too was bit in the mall incident but succumbed to the infection, so Ellie undoubtedly has some survivor's guilt. If she can be a part in finding a cure, maybe it'll ease this guilt. Ellie and Riley were also romantically linked, so I had a nice laugh when Tess asked Ellie if she had any boyfriends that would be on her trail after her. Marlene picked up Ellie from the abandoned mall and put her in confinement knowing she was infected. She didn't kill her, likely because of a promise she made to Ellie's mom before Ellie was born, a promise to watch after her. But with Marlene being the head of the Fireflies, the safest place for Ellie was the orphanage run by Fedra. There, Marlene could keep an eye on her from afar. Joel's hand is partly broken, likely a hairline fracture from beating a Fedra soldier to death. Like most of the trauma in his life, he bottles it up and doesn't talk about it. Ellie will later ask him personal questions, including how he feels about just killing a man, but it goes nowhere. After a quick lunch break, which includes Ellie eating a delicacy in this post-apocalyptic world, a chicken sandwich, Tess asks why Marlene and the Fireflies are so invested with her. Turns out there's a Firefly base camp with doctors working on a cure somewhere out west. With Ellie being immune, perhaps she's the key to finding a cure.
I'm saying she basically a cure, pretty much.
Of course, Joel thinks this is all bullshit. He's heard the stories of camps out west filled with doctors working on cures, and they're all all BS. Nonetheless, he's willing to continue on their journey so they can get that sweet, sweet battery. Along the way, we come across the iconic Leaning Towers of Boston, also from the game, and I love the addition of these huge craters where the military bombed cities in an attempt to curb the spread. As Tess says, it worked in Boston, but not all cities were as lucky. There's also a fun giraffe plushie. These giraffes can be found all throughout the game, like in Sarah's room, abandoned houses, and foreshadow one of the game's most iconic scenes. Along the way, Ellie remarks that it seems quiet. She imagined a world with roaming bands of runners, but she makes reference to two types of infected we haven't seen, at least not yet. The first is a super infected that explodes fungal spores on you. These are likely bloaters. She also talks about infected with split open heads that can't see in the dark. We'll see these monsters known as clickers.
Yeah, clickers, boy, they kind of look scary as hell. No cat, boy, they you know what I mean?
Later in the episode.
They see using sound. Like bats? Like bats. If you hear one clicking, you gotta hide.
In the game, the journey
you gotta hide, boy. They go crazy.
The Capitol building takes us through a variety of locations, like skyscrapers, workplaces, and the subway. But for the purposes of brevity, the show has condensed it to two main sets, and damn do they look gorgeous. First is the abandoned hotel. The flooded hotel looks like it's inspired by the Hotel Grand, a location that isn't seen until Joel and Ellie visit Pittsburgh. Notice how when Joel helps Ellie up, he glances at the wound on his fist. He's still worried that she could be infected, and you never want to have an open wound around someone who could be sick. With Tess having to go around debris to unlock the way forward, we get one of our first one-on-one conversations between Joel and Ellie. Joel is understandably walled off. There's no point in him getting close with a girl who they're going to leave anyway. He does, however, notice her switchblade. It was a gift from Ellie's mother. Remember that Sarah spent a lot of time looking at her father's switchblade in episode 1, and I'd put my money on this blade coming into Ellie's possession later on in the season. Ellie asks Joel if he and Tess are a thing. In the game, the two are flirty with each other, but it doesn't go as far as the show, where we see Tess actually get in bed with him. There is, however, one really important line near the end of the episode that puts things into perspective. After it's revealed Tess has been bit and she can no longer continue the journey.
She can't. Yeah, I was like, damn. I'm like, she got bitten. Even Ellie was like, yeah, she got bitten. I'm like, damn. That was crazy. That was crazy though, no cap.
With them, she tells Joel, "I never asked you for anything, not even to feel the way I felt," implying that she was the one who had a thing for him, but he was emotionally unavailable. Again, this tracks. This is a guy who has lost everyone close to him, his wife, his daughter, and he risks losing his brother, who was last seen somewhere out in Wyoming. Joel knows you can't get hurt if you don't get attached. Joel also doesn't answer Ellie's question about how he got to Boston, the years between Sarah's death and...
Yeah, that's what I was saying, like, how you get to Boston? That's what we don't know, but they probably gonna show us, like, behind the scenes, or a background, I mean. They should, though.
The events of The Last of Us are filled with hellish memories. Joel contemplated suicide and did unspeakable things to survive. He'd trick innocent people into thinking he was hurt so that he could steal their supplies or even kill them. It's no wonder he's not too keen on telling Ellie about this time of his life. From the rooftop, we can make out hundreds of infected. Tess tells us that this fungus connects all of them. You step on cordyceps in one place, it could awaken a dozen infected in another. Believe it or not, the planet's largest organism is not the blue whale, but a fungus in organ that spans nearly 4 square miles. So theoretically, someone stepping on it could send signals as far as 4 miles away. We'll see this play out later in the episode when an infected is shot and the tendrils underneath it alert swarms of runners nearby. I also found it interesting that these infected underneath it alert swarms of runners nearby. I also found it interesting that these infected writhe in the sunlight, likely because fungi prefer dark and moist conditions.
Yeah, what I was saying, they go by the dark. That's why I say I hurry up when it gets dark outside, because that's when they come.
We'll later see Joel open up one of these tendrils and remark that it's bone dry, a signal that whatever is nearby is likely dead. Their journey leads them to the Bostonian Museum, a set piece taken directly from the game. It's a bit ironic considering this museum is all about freedom when they live in a world that's under authoritarian control. Their luck runs out when they uncover a fresh body, suggesting infected nearby. The place is filled with tons of dead infected, and the building itself looks and sounds like it could collapse at any moment, which is something that happens to them in both versions. I also love that the area they first meet these clickers is part of the hands-on exhibit. Joel warns Ellie that clickers can't see, rather use a form of echolocation to navigate their surroundings. These clickers look absolutely gorgeous, but definitely not something you'd want to encounter on your own. Joel shoots one and Tess lodges an axe into the other, a nice callback to the games where you can do the same. The biggest change here from the game, however, is Ellie getting bit. It doesn't happen in the game version, but I understand why they put it in here. Near the end of the episode, we find out Tess was also bit. In a matter of hours, her infection has spread like wildfire while nothing has happened to Ellie. This is to hammer home the fact that she is indeed immune, something Joel and Tess had a hard time wrapping their heads around. Tess keeps her injury hidden until the final moments of the episode, and Joel helps bandage her twisted ankle as they make their way to the Capitol building. With tape no less one of the key crafting ingredients from the game. There are some gorgeous shots taken directly from the game here as well. Now let me know if you caught Joel looking at his watch after Ellie.
I saw that. He looked at his watch, he like this, and then when he went on, you know,
the ladder. This happens in the game too, so it's not just some random acting choice. The watch is a symbol of his daughter, and the fact he now has Ellie under his protection, a girl almost the same age as his daughter, Joel is starting to see what this mission can be. Whether he knows it consciously or not, Joel's adventure with Ellie is a chance at redemption, a chance for him to ease the guilt he feels around his daughter's death. But with this comes a price. If he grows too attached to Ellie, he could suffer a fate worse than death, the feeling of losing a daughter again.
A person is trying to avoid a fate worse than death. For Joel, it'd be losing a daughter again.
In the first episode's Behind the Ep featurette, which I'll leave a link to in the description below,
showrunner I saw that. Episode 1, Inside Look. I saw that. I gotta see episode 2, Inside Look, later on, but yeah.
Season even says that when Joel is protecting Ellie at the end of the episode, he thinks it's his daughter.
In the final moments of this episode.
Yeah, he did. That's why I was saying, when he said, put your hands up on episode 1, and he was like, he looked back at his daughter, he like, oh, that's why he beat him today. He like, bah. You know what I mean? He beat his ass to death, boy. So his hand kind of hurt, but you know, it's him no. But he beat his ass, though. He said, hey, I ain't gonna let that shit happen no more.
Episode, Joel forgets that the girl that is standing behind him is not his daughter.
Yeah, it's not, but he thought it was, because you know what happened last time.
As they approach the Capitol building, they notice there are no fireflies around. This is a bit of a departure from the game, where they uncover a dead squadron of them in the subway tunnels. Inside is a gruesome scene. The fireflies they were supposed to hand Ellie off to,
yeah, they all died. And I kind of figured that was like, that was too good to be true. Too good to be true, man.
Are all dead. One of them got sick and they all died in the skirmish. In the game, we find that the fireflies are indeed dead here, but it's never known how these guys died, whether it was infected,
that's probably those clickers or something like that,
or Fedra soldiers. Here is where we find some of the biggest changes from the game. In the game, Tess tells Joel to take Ellie to Tommy, but in the show, they don't really know exactly where Tommy is, and instead she tells him to take her to Bill and Frank's. Bill and Frank are the B and F markings from Joel's smuggler code, those people who would communicate with him via songs on the radio. Bill and Frank might take in Ellie, since Joel wants nothing to do with her. If Joel can bring her to them, maybe he can set right all the terrible shit he and Tess did in the past. Their goodbyes are cut short when one of the dead bodies comes to life and Joel shoots it. It lays atop this bed of fungus which loops around the dead body's hand, which alerts the nearby runners to their presence. With Tess a few hours away from turning into one of them, remember a bite to the shoulder can take anywhere from 2 to 8 hours to incubate, she makes the ultimate sacrifice by dumping gasoline.
You gotta do it, unless they gonna die too. You gotta bind that motherfucker.
And grenades, she can take out the infected, allowing Joel and Ellie to escape. Her last words to Joel are save who you can. This scene plays out differently in the game. Instead of infected descending on the building, it's Fedra soldiers. Tess stays to defend while Joel and Ellie run, and she ends up taking 2 soldiers down before being killed. I personally like the show version better. To me, it's scarier and more fun. And of course, we gotta talk about that creepy kiss.
Yeah, I think I got a little kiss.
Earlier in the episode, we saw the professor extract these tendrils from the infected woman in Jakarta, and in episode 1, we saw Mrs. Adler use them to latch onto her prey. Whether the show's infected prefer to use the mouth as an easy point of access remains to be seen, but whatever the case, it gave me awful memories of my first kiss in grade school. The Capitol building explodes, leaving Joel and Ellie on their own to continue their journey with the last shot of Ellie framed among the ruins. Joel has just lost one of the closest people to him in his life, and he simply just walks away. We are starting to see a pattern with Joel and how he deals with these relationships. Will Ellie be able to bring down that wall? Now I hand it over to you. What did you think of the latest episode of The Last of Us?
I give it a 10 out of 10.
I want to hear your thoughts and theories in the...
I give it a 10 out of 10, man. But good ass video. Think story. Good ass video, man. And yeah, leave a like to my channel, man. Hit the bell if you're new. Like it up, man. Let me know what you think about episode 2. Is it a 10 out of 10? Is it 8? Is it 9? Is it 1? Is it 2? Is it 3? You know, I give it a 10 out of 10, but let me know what y'all think, man. But yeah, like it up, sub, and yeah, peace.